Greetings, and thank you for joining this Friends of Socialist China webinar. I'm Margaret Kimberly, Executive Editor of Black Agenda Report and a member of the Black Alliance for Peace and the United National Anti-War Coalition. I'm honored to participate in this event, and I was honored recently when I was invited to join a Friends of Socialist China delegation, which was hosted by the China NGO Network for International Exchanges, which traveled to Beijing, Hangzhou, and Jiaxing in Xinjiang Province, and Changchun and Saiping in Jilin Province. Not only was it an amazing and inspiring experience, but I felt a connection to those who had gone before me. A connection not only with those who had traveled to China, but to all Black people who struggled to support and defend socialism in the U.S. and around the world. Black socialism was always under attack. The Red Scare and McCarthyism were directed at Black people in a particularly harsh way, and were even used to demonize those who weren't socialists. As we know, Paul Robeson and W.E.B. Du Bois had their passports confiscated, and Claudia Jones was deported. Although anyone who was disliked by the white power structure could be labeled a communist, with the understanding that expressing any viewpoint remotely akin to socialism would result in being disappeared from the public sphere. During our delegation visit, we saw museums, historic sites, and hero cities, which brought to life China's amazing history. From being a weakened empire, picked apart by the West, to now being a nation that has emerged as an economic and political rival to those nations which had subjugated it in the past. China suffered from Japan's invasion and millions of deaths in World War II, to the Civil War, to victory in 1949, which was quickly followed by war in Korea. In short, China succeeded in beating the odds and winning and keeping a revolution. I believe that the triumph over these struggles makes the story of the People's Republic of China so appealing to people who have yet to find true liberation. These facts, which create so much admiration for China, also make it a target of attack. It presents the threat of a good example. I visited major cities in China and didn't see anyone living on the street, as I do here in New York or in other major cities in my country. Of course, that doesn't mean that no one is unhoused, but it's an indication of what a nation prioritizes. After all, China has lifted 800 million people out of extreme poverty in 40 years. Poverty alleviation is not on the agenda of either of the two duopoly parties in the U.S. In fact, both are dedicated to increasing austerity and immiseration, just the opposite of what China has dedicated itself to doing. We from the U.S. are very much indoctrinated. We have to make great efforts to be informed about any issue of importance, particularly about countries we are told to fear or to hate. We see that Joe Biden tells China not to aid Russia in the Ukraine proxy war, as if trade with China has caused this tremendous failure, a loss of public money and thousands of lives. The Treasury Secretary then visits to say the Chinese economy was, quote, over capacity, unquote. She was quickly followed by the Secretary of State Blinken, who lectured on human rights and claimed that China was interfering in the presidential election. Blinken had definitely worn out his welcome. If you haven't done so, you should look for the video which shows Xi Jinping waiting to meet him and being impatient and very unhappy about having to do so at all, and expressing happiness about Blinken's departure. While I was in China, the war against the Palestinian people was ongoing, and Israel had bombed an Iranian consulate in Syria. While U.S. politicians made nearly unanimous calls for more war, China advocated restraint. An official statement said, quote, "The crisis highlights the complex dynamics of regional politics and the delicate balance of power in the Middle East. It serves as a reminder of the importance of dialogue, cooperation, and conflict resolution to ensure peace and stability in the region," unquote. A mature and measured response should be the default position of the U.S., but it is just the opposite. Politicians and the media have much to say, none of it complimentary, about what they call the Chinese Communist Party, what they call the CCP. But there's only a CPC, Communist Party of China. It says quite a lot that the propaganda requires the use of a made-up name in order to sustain public antipathy towards another nation. It is both eye-opening and sobering to leave the U.S. and visit nations in which socialists have attained state power, especially in this moment. As a U.S. presidential election approaches, we are once again reminded that the political system will permit no request for change. The most minimal reforms are rejected outright, while the people's money is used to continue the failed Ukraine project and to support Israel's ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza. The precarity experienced by millions of people is explained away as a figment of their collective imagination. There is rarely a call for making even modest changes, much less revolutionary change, as happened in the People's Republic of China. I watched from afar as corruption in the U.S. was laid bare. I observed a $95 billion giveaway from members of Congress, including $61 billion to the military-industrial complex for the Ukraine proxy war, which has already been lost to Russia. The apartheid state of Israel was also a recipient of $26 billion, and $8 billion was allocated to antagonize China over Taiwan, an island that the U.S. officially acknowledges as being part of China. It was a surreal experience, as the great distance brought all the ugliness into high relief. While members of Congress referred to the conservative post-Soviet leader Vladimir Putin as a communist KGB thug and a murderous Marxist dictator, yes, they really said that, China counseled peace. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz met with Chinese President Xi Jinping, who repeated that peace talks are the only reasonable solution to the Ukraine crisis. China has offered its services in an effort to end the bloodshed ever since the proxy war began, but it has been rebuffed at every turn. China is treated as a hostile irrelevancy when it has 18% of the world's population and the world's second largest economy. That's why it's treated with such hostility by a country that only knows how to dominate, for whom cooperation is anathema. We must also say that racism is an element in the hostility. The U.S. deeply resents that a country of non-white people are challenging it at every turn. In this moment, it's clear that revolution is the only hope for the world. The U.S. is attacking its own citizens, telling outrageous lies about the young people who have taken up the charge of demanding divestment from apartheid Israel. The police are being used to stop dissent, as they did during the post-World War I Palmer raids and the McCarthy era, and during the days of the FBI counterintelligence program and the wars on crime and drugs, all used to punish Black people and those who refuse to censor themselves. W.E.B. Du Bois said, quote, "Fantastic tales of the failure of socialism and the impossibility of communism fill our periodicals and books. Most Americans today are convinced that socialism has failed or will fail in the near future," unquote. He said these words more than 60 years ago, and they are true today. Even Cuba, devastated by years of economic coercive measures, provides for the needs of its people. Socialism has not failed, and China proves it. But here in what we call the belly of the beast, we are called upon to be courageous. But we do not have a choice in the matter. We see the beginnings of full-blown repression, and we must prepare ourselves with study and with organization. China has many lessons to teach. Thank you very much.
I'm Michael Hudson. I'm appearing here for the International Manifesto Group. If you like this video and ones like it, please subscribe. For more information, go to the address on the screen.